Oh, okay, sorry. We have to now move the substantive motion, which has been moved by me and seconded.
I'll second.
Councillor Casey. So I'll put the substantive motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary?
No.
Carried.
Record my vote against.
Okay, any other votes recorded against? I've got 1, 2, 3 councillors. We've got councillors Simpson, Quacks, Fletcher, and Stewart. That's it. That's fine. Okay, councillors, we now come to item number 12. What could be controversial but won't be, because it involves almost no change, and that is the adoption of the Auckland Council elected members' expense policy for 2016.
Happy to move.
Been moved. And have a seconder. That, of course, then will be submitted to the Remuneration Authority for approval, so we are not judge and jury in our own case, which is reinforcing. But if I can ask Joe Isles, Business Hub Manager, to speak to the paper, and Marguerite Delbay.
Your Worship and Councillors, there is a requirement by the Remuneration Authority that the Council has an elected member expense policy. We did make some changes from the previous ones. The main changes relate to some of the authorization process and the approvers, after there were some issues in the last term with some of the processes, notably for local boards. The other change that we have made is that we have spent considerable amount of time and effort developing an elected member development program, and the new expense policy basically simplifies the approval process for elected members to take part on this program. We have also reorganized and tried to clarify the policy wherever we could. I'll note that our head of internal audit has reviewed it, and we've worked very closely with him. He's happy with it, in that it has gone through all 21 local boards towards the end of the last term. And the comments that we had from local boards in general have been incorporated in the revised draft, so we have taken into account the comments we got from them. So I think it's been, thoroughly consulted on and worked on, and I will sort of emphasize again that the changes from the previous one are minor in nature.
Thank you, Marguerite. Opportunity for questions from councillors. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't get to read all this because this buggered up on me in the weekend at home and I couldn't read it.
Is that a technical
as much as
term?
I would have liked? Yes, it is, definitely. So what I just want to ask is around travel expenses, so remuneration for travel. Has anything been done to address the strange anomaly that you can only claim from your nearest local board? Because for some people, in my case, and I'm not complaining, just describing an inequity, is I'm 10k from my nearest local board and 20k from here. So I can only claim 10k, but somebody that lives right next door to their local board could claim the full travel. So is that a remuneration authority thing, or so we can't do anything about that? So it's quite weird. Some councillors can claim half their travel distance, or a quarter, and some can claim the full amount because they live right near their local board office. So it's taken from under the understanding that everybody thought that would work from a local board office, where, I mean, some local board offices, like the Aureki one, is no bigger than a little dress shop. You wouldn't even fit all the
Not even
local
a dress
board.
shop.
I thought it was a dress shop.
I
thought it was a dress shop when I went there. You had the rack outside. I just wanted to wonder if there's anything we're going to address those sorts of issues with the remuneration authority.
So the first question is this a decision of the Remuneration Authority rather than something that we should do here? And since it does seem anomalous, is there a way in which a submission can be made to the Remuneration Authority?
So the answer to the first question is yes, it is a decision of the Remuneration Authority. With regards to the second question, we did make a submission to the Remuneration Authority on several aspects relating to transport expenses, because we've had several councillors and local board members who've asked us to. And the answer that we got from the Remuneration Authorities, they had thoroughly reviewed their policy with regards to travel expenses, and it would remain as it was.
And that was a relatively recent submission?
Yes, it was in the last six months? Yeah, about 6 months. Because it was before they got their determination for this
That's fine. I
year.
think the answer is that it's hard to justify. It seems anomalous, but they don't want to change it. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Quacks.
Just in regards to, we had a discussion on this, I think, at the beginning of the last term, around parking, where a number of members have been caught out attending meetings or constituents on council business, and they've come back and found that they've got a ticket on their car. And in one particular occasion, I was attending a hearings at a local board office, happened to park on a 60-minute parking area. It's gone for 2 hours, and I found that I had a ticket on my car.
Well, good job.
Which, yeah, good job.
Fair enough.
So the question, Councillor Quacks.
It did raise a question for me about whether councillors should receive when they're on council business and some kind of indemnity against
Oh, good luck.
I'm going to rule that question out from the chair. I know it's common practice in some countries, and it's closely associated with a distinct discomfort with the privileges accorded to elected representatives. I think Councillor Quacks and Councillor Cashmore and I both drive long distances and sometimes marginally exceed the speed limit. When we get a ticket, we pay for it.
Yeah.
No, because, well,
rules.
yeah. That's a totally different.
You don't
area,
get
that's a
parking
totally
tickets on your
different
bike.
issue. And because anyway, obviously it hasn't been addressed.
and it's unlikely to be. Thank you, Councillor Quacks. Councillor Casey.
I'd just like to raise two issues which are kind of controversial among the public, but I'll raise them anyway. One is I actually don't think that councillors should be flying business class. And I know that we've argued this blue in the face to get to this point. The previous council has, but I still don't think that the 6 hours flying time plus you have to be on council business within 24 hours means you can upgrade to business class. I think we should be flying with the people. So that's number one. Number two is alcohol.
Or pay your own
And
upgrade.
while I admit that when we have functions...
Was
in
that a
here-
question, Councillor Casey?
Oh,
No, it wasn't, but
I don't think it had a question word. Do you have a question though, do you?
I have a question about flying the business class. Yeah. Wouldn't it be true that it'd be much cheaper? Wouldn't it be true it'd be much cheaper to fly a day earlier than to fly business class?
Yes. From someone.
Yes, and that's something that councillors should take into consideration if it's possible.
Without doubt.
Can we? That's a kind of a political decision rather than one that officials can answer. Have you got a second question?
Second one was
Have you got a first question actually?
The second question is on our page 163, and it's about alcohol and how you are admitting that such expenditure, that's for third parties alcohol. That means you're taking somebody out for dinner and you're treating them to alcohol. And there's a reminder here that such expenditure is regarded as sensitive expenditure and accordingly should be at moderately priced level to avoid any perception of lavishness. What does moderately priced mean? It's a serious question because I don't. Ratepayers should be paying for your alcohol at a private dinner with a guest. So what's moderate? What do you mean by that? What would you consider would be an appropriate amount of moderation for a meal between two people?
That arguably is a technical question. Yes.
We use the term moderate and conservative, and because it's very difficult to say you should have only 2 glasses of wine each, and you know, take the cheapest bottle. And this is where we sort of appeal to the judgment of the person who's paying the bill. But certainly, you know, first prices on the price list and a reasonable amount that would enable you to drive home would be what I personally would consider reasonable.
One alternative definition of that might be if you were paying it for you were paying the bill yourself, what would you order? I accept that there are occasions when you've got international guests and that would be, a glass of wine with the meal would be regarded as normal, but I would not accept that you went for anything in the top half of the price range on the menu. It would have to be a modest bottle of wine, albeit that we might be trying to sell our ability as a country to produce fine wines. I just think it's the front page of the newspaper test. If it was written up on the front page of the newspaper, would it look like a reasonable decision or would it look like extravagance? And it should never look like extravagance.
Well, is a liqueur after dinner an extravagance or a kind of liqueur coffee? Is that part of the dinner? I'm interested because I think it's worthy of debate. I don't know if anybody else feels the same, but on Facebook, you'd be seen with a glass of wine ever, and you'll get 100 questions about who paid for it. And we're talking about, you said who pays the bill. It's actually the ratepayers that pay this bill. So it is quite important to discuss it at least. I'm just raising it.
No, I agree entirely. It would, in most instances, be best not to pay the cost of alcohol, but there will be circumstances where that would be odd. If you were entertaining the mayor of a sister city and they would be treating you reciprocally, then it would look odd to say to the mayor of that city, sorry, you have to pay for your own wine. And I don't think the public would regard that as reasonable. But if you're spending $100 on the bottle of wine, that might be regarded as unreasonable when you can buy a good bottle of wine, I think, for $20, which is all I'd ever pay. But then I've got Scott's background too, you see, Kathy. Okay, I don't think we could progress that one very far. We've now got Councillor Holz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, this is always such a difficult thing and it's so public and it's so divisive, but I do agree we need to draw some lines in the sand. And I had understood that it was a no ratepayers ever pay for alcohol policy, full stop. I think so full disclosure, I don't drink alcohol, so I can be accused of being a wowser, but neither have I ever claimed for anything alcoholic, and neither in 24 years, incidentally, have I ever claimed for a meal. So, you know, I just think we all get very well paid. You know, let's not beat about the bush. We get paid a lot of money, guys. I just think we need to start drawing some lines in the sand. Anyone who's been observing politics and the downfall of the elite political classes needs to just take a little lesson here, and I think we need to get a grip. The ratepayers shouldn't pay for alcohol, full stop. We need to look very seriously. I'm on your behalf flying to Mexico in 2 weeks and flying economy class, and I think we need to think very seriously before we claim for a meal. There's not a single person around this table who can't afford to pay for a meal. The one exception I want to raise, Mr. Mayor, is I have a lot of sympathy for people travelling a long way, and I'm not going to even mention any councillors who work around this table because it's politically difficult. But Councillor Penny Webster was absolutely hammered for the amount of money that she got paid in mileage. She was hammered politically and she was hammered by the media. She can't help it that the super city moved her place of work to town from Orewa. And I think we need to look very carefully at how we manage and message. If we're going to allow and expect young people and people of different economic means to stand for council, we cannot hammer people for what it costs them to get to work. So I say no food allowance, no alcohol allowance, get a grip around that, but let's be kind and gentle to people about being able to afford to get to their place of work.
Okay. I am in error myself and every other councillor. We were asking technical questions and we've now moved into the debate. No, the points you're making were very reasonable, but can we just see if there's any technical questions? Councillor Cooper.
Just around the travel, air travel, and we're saying business class economy. There will be councillors who have medical conditions that they cannot travel for long distances cramped up because actually it's dangerous.
Sorry, is this a question?
Yeah, so I'm asking, we've got nothing in here about, you know, basically say you can only do this and you can only do that, but there may be, I'm wondering if there's some sort of exception for some people and cannot travel long distances economy class. The hourly rate the hours might be a bit long for them, even, you've got a cap of, is it more than 5 hours?
So the question is there any exception to the 6-hour
that's what I'm trying to say.
policy?
Yeah.